Hello my friends and welcome back. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Sorry to break the news, but winter's coming and the war in Ukraine will stop. That's according to the Americans. And they think that the war will stop for about 6 months. Why? Because of the bad weather. Well, can you envision what will happen within this, let's say, 6-month period? How the military on the territory of Ukraine will reshuffle, retrain, reorganize for next year. It's like this is a, how do you call it, in a football game, it's halftime. And then part 2 is about to come. So let's see what these weasels are saying here. This article comes from Sputnik, and it is from today, the 13th of November 2022. Alleged winter pause in Ukraine conflict could last as long as 6 months, end quote, US report suggests. Russian President Vladimir Putin announced the beginning of Moscow's special military operation in Ukraine in February 24. Following the Donbas Republic's request for protection from Kiev's provocations. Conflict-related hostilities in Ukraine may be stalled, and I'm quoting, well into next year, end quote, due to bad weather, a US media outlet has quoted unnamed Biden administration sources as saying. Referring to, and I'm quoting, referring to Russia's ongoing special military operation, the sources allegedly claimed that the winter pause could last as long as 6 months. I found a very interesting piece of information yesterday where you had a negotiator, the main negotiator, Ukrainian negotiator, saying that Ukraine will most likely to speak with Russia in the second half of 2023. And I was thinking, how do you know that? You know, and then the guy said it's because the election cycle starts or something like that. And I was like, really? Is that what it is in Ukraine? All about getting elected or something? Well, anyway, I made a video on all that, and that seemed very criminal to me. So maybe it's the weather, plus they know something already. I'll keep you posted. Now, according to insiders, rain and soft ground will slow the movements of both Russian and Ukrainian forces, who then may face cold weather and heavy snows, according to insiders. See that? I think that tells me, and that's not an insider right here. This, you just have to look over a map and figure out and look at the date of today and figure things out. You don't have to be an insider to figure out that soft ground will slow the movements of both Russia and Ukrainian forces. They have been moving for the past 3 months much, were they? Aside from the Ukrainian offensive in the north, and now the retreat of the Russians in Kherson, I haven't seen much movement whatsoever, and I didn't expect to see any anyway. The sources also stressed the importance of using the alleged winter slowdown in both sides' troops' deployments to rebuild a defensive and offensive weapons supply to Kiev. Like Russians will not do anything about it. They will not resupply their thing. And I'm quoting, the claims followed Colin H. Call, the U.S. Undersecretary of Defense for Policy, telling reporters that, and I'm quoting, you were already seeing the sloppy weather in Ukraine slow things down a little bit, end quote. He added that it's getting really muddy, which makes it hard to do a large-scale offensive. I think they have a war fatigue already, and they're depleted of personnel. The remarks were preceded by the Pentagon's announcing additional military assistance to Kiev, worth about $400 million. It's unbelievable how these guys can can just utter or just speak out loud this kind of numbers. 400 million. It's like, I don't know, some change somewhere. Or 700 million, or let alone 18.5 billion already, I think, provided. These are not small numbers, and they just, like, since when that country became so important to the United States? Is it since Biden's son went over there to bang some ladies of the night? Is that when? And get some cocaine on, whatever. So, unbelievable. So the remarks were preceded by the Pentagon's announcing additional military assistance to Kiev worth about $400 million. It comprises 4 high-mobility, short-range Avenger air defense systems capable of firing Stinger missiles, as well as large amount of ammunition, including for the high-mobility artillery rocket systems, or HIMARS. It says here that the Russian ambassador Antonov said that the U.S. is prolonging Ukraine conflict to profit from arms and LNG, liquefied natural gas sales. No shit, really? And not only. It's been known for the very beginning. Moscow has repeatedly warned that Washington and its allies providing Kiev with weapons further escalates the Ukraine conflict. That's exactly what they want. So it's not a warning, it's just stating the facts. Russia launched its special military operation in Ukraine on February 24, after the Donetsk and Lugansk People's Republics appealed for help in defending themselves against Kiev's provocations, shortly after Western countries rolled out a comprehensive sanctions campaign against Moscow in retaliation, also starting to supply weapons to Ukraine. So this is, like always, in all articles, the last paragraph is the one that is going to remain in your brain and my brain when I read something. That's how the human brain is wired. Human brain retains the beginning or the end of a story, not the bulk, the center, the middle. So in this case, they gave you here the last paragraph. This is actually what you have to remember. And by repetition, you would get that to think it's true at one point when it's going to come from within. You're going to say, yeah, man, that's what happened. But you don't know where that came from. It came by repetition. Remember, the human brain needs about 8 conscious repetitions or exposure to repetition in order for the brain to memorize that, put it in a subconscious, and sometime at the right time come back into your brain and say, hey, I love ice cream. Why do I love ice cream? I don't know. Well, because someone, you see the commercials, you hear the commercials, people tell you. Repetition, remember? And then you have obviously the conditioning if you also practice what you've been instructed to practice. So 6 months, let's see. I don't think it's going to be 6 months, and I'll tell you why. Because Russia's offensive or military operations started in February 24th. So if they thought, based on their assessments, that that's a good time to start the offensive, that means these guys have no problem starting it in February. So then it's November, December, January, maximum February. Now it doesn't mean that in February the weather could not turn shittier than usual, but it's 4 months. They say up to 6 months. Could be. We're going to find out. We'll see what happens over Christmas. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Stay strong, stay smart, look for the truth, and be just.